No worries. We're still starting earlier than most people do.
Good to go.
Hello, my name is John Nieder. I'm Chair of the Water and Sewer Commission for the town of Northborough, Massachusetts. This open meeting of the...
I'm not hearing you. Oh, sorry. That was my fault. You're good. Keep going.
Hello, I'm John Nieder, Chair of the Northborough Water and Sewer Commission. This open meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. All members of the Water and Sewer Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Water and Sewer Commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. At this point, I'll ask the commission members to acknowledge and confirm that you can be heard. Bryant Furman.
I'm here, present.
Thank you. John Nieder, I'm here. Our third member, David Pepe, is unavailable this evening. Town staff, when I call your name, would you please respond in the affirmative? Scott Charpentier, Department of Public Works Director.
Present.
Tim Davison, Water and Sewer Operations Manager. Yeah, Tim is unfortunately having some audio issues. He is visible on the screen, or we're hopefully going to work that out. And Robert Luke, Administrative Assistant in Public Works.
Present.
Okay, at this point, we will go to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is consideration of our meeting minutes from July 16th, 2024. David Pepe is unfortunately unable to attend. Bryant Furman was not at that meeting, so we're going to defer on the minutes until our next regularly scheduled regular meeting. At this point, our next agenda item is public hearing for consideration of a water and sewer rate adjustment. At this point, I do have another piece of information to read, and then I'll introduce our speakers and presenters. So bear with me for a moment. Pursuant to the regulations for users of the Northborough Water Supply and Distribution System, subsection C, section C, subsection 6, the Northborough Water and Sewer Commission will conduct a public hearing to consider a water and sewer rate adjustment on Tuesday, August 20th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 20 and 23, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. Information as to how to participate in the public comment portion of this meeting was previously provided in the posted public hearing notice and legal advertisement. Okay, with that being said, at this point, I will ask Scott Charpentier, Director of Public Works, to provide some background information and introduce our consultant. At that point, after the consultant presentation, I anticipate we'll handle any questions or comments from the commission. At that point, we'll open it up for any public comment. I will have some additional language to instruct folks how to participate at that time. And then I anticipate we'll close the public hearing and then take action on the motion to make a rate adjustment immediately following. So with all that being said, I'll introduce Scott Charpentier, Director of Public Works, to provide some background information and introduce our consultant. Scott?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Charpentier, Public Works Director. I have Dave Fox from Raftellus Financial here. I'll give you a wide view of rate studies and why we do it and our operations, and then Dave will get into the numbers a little deeper. So we do a water and sewer rate study every year. It evaluates quite a few components. It includes our operating expenses, which is typical utilities, labor, material purchases, the like. The portion of the rate study considers a capital improvement plan, both what has been approved and is being financed currently, those finance payments going forward, as well as planned capital improvement projects. Those are projected through the outlook of the rate study and beyond. Also, as part of the rate study, we looked at revenue, which is the funds brought in from the water and sewer bills that all of our customers receive. And then we have a look back and a look forward based on where we believe escalation costs are. For example, utilities are going up for everybody, as we know. Some other components may be a little more flat on the cost side. And on the revenue side, we'll take a look at what the last year or two looked like and try to project going forward. Regarding revenue, on the water and sewer, it highly dependent upon your seasonal precipitation. Wet years, people don't use a lot of water. Dry years, people use a lot of water. And your sewer bills are directly related to your water use. So one of the challenges we have in order to maintain revenue stream is water consumption is going down. Water consumption has been going down for many years, and it's going to continue to go down. There's been a lot of water conservation efforts implemented. Everybody knows their faucets and their shower heads flow a lot differently today than they did 20 years ago. As we replace appliances and do improvements, low water flow appliances are installed, so you get less use. That's just the industry, and that's the direction everybody's going in. Though the rate study is not a static document that's developed once, makes a recommendation on rate adjustments, and then it goes back in the drawer and we have a look at it again. It's a living document that I work on throughout the year and utilize Raftellus's expertise and Dave specifically to vet out some of my assumptions and ideas. For example, at the end of the fiscal year, we put in all of last fiscal year's revenue, look for any anomalies. Right around the calendar year end, we're developing our operating budget to be presented to the various boards and committees. We put those actual projected operating budget values into the rate study. And after the operating budget is developed around the holidays, right afterwards, we're jumping into capital. We develop our capital plan. Now we all go to town meeting. Things get approved or amended as needed at town meeting floor. We then incorporate all of that information to the rate study again. And then we start all over again when July comes and the fiscal year starts. So like I said, it's a living document. It's a lot of work. There's no way I could do it without Raftellus, and I'd like to think that they need a little bit of me as well. So that's how we got to where we are today. And Dave, if you want to get into the little more of the nuts and bolts, that'd be great.
Sure, Scott, I'd be happy to. And for the record, I certainly could not do it without you. A lot of effort on your end. So thanks for keeping me on task as well and giving us all we need to be able to accomplish this. So My name is Dave Fox. I'm a vice president with Reptelis. We're the largest firm in the country, predominantly focused on water and sewer, rate and financial planning matters. I've been working with the town for, I don't know, about 8 years now, I think, going on 8 years, something like that, doing annual studies, as well as Scott mentioned, updates to our financial plan and the rate study throughout the year, which is a bit of an anomaly in my world, and something that I think has greatly benefited the town and keeping them on track with regard to their financial plan and keeping up with cost increases and changes. As Scott mentioned, financial plans are living, breathing documents. They're not something that can just be, completed once and set in stone. Unfortunately, the water and sewer industry changes rapidly with regard to regulations, with regard to the new need for new capital improvements. And as Scott mentioned, the fluctuations in consumption, which happens annually just due to weather. Like last year, we had a very, very wet season. Consumption declined accordingly. We're seeing a little bit of that this year as well. But as Scott mentioned, we're also seeing just reductions in per capita consumption, pretty much a linear trend downward, depending upon the year, maybe about 1 to 3%. Predominantly, in my opinion, at least, just due to the implementation of high efficiency fixtures, low flow toilets, low flow shower heads, things like that. I think maybe a little bit of a general awareness around, conserving water is the right thing to do. Conserving water can help reduce customers' bills. I think there's a little bit of that going on as well, as people are starting to pay attention to household expenditures. But I think the predominant reason we're seeing the reductions in per capita consumption annually is just really the efficiency that we're seeing in fixtures. So for all those reasons, these, the financial plan that we established, and I'll get into that in just a little bit, does change frequently. And I applaud the town for not only looking at this once a year, but looking at it throughout the year as well, and understanding how those costs are changing, even midway through a fiscal year. We have developed several years ago, and we continue to use, because it's working very well, a financial planning model, which allows us to do a lot of the things Scott already mentioned, review historical actuals, how costs are changing, how consumption is changing, your revenue stream is changing. But also, and I think equally, if not more important, is understanding with the best information we have today, where your cost structure for the water and sewer funds are going over the next 5 years. A lot of communities will just look at the next fiscal year in a silo, and that's all they're focused on, and they're ignoring potential significant increases or changes to operating expenses or capital improvements in years 2 through 5 of a forecast. So we think it's incredibly important to at least plan for the future with the best information we have today, and start making adjustments, smaller magnitude adjustments now, rather than waiting until running up to that cliff, and you might need a more major adjustment thereafter. So we take all your operating expenses, which Scott already went through in some detail, your existing debt service that you have for both water and sewer, and the capital improvements plan, the timing of capital improvements, the magnitude in terms of the dollar amount, how those capital improvements are going to be paid for, either through cash generated through a revenue stream in a given year to pay for that project in its entirety, or potentially even partial, potentially some grant funding, so money coming from outside sources to be able to offset capital improvements, which is fantastic that the town is able to take advantage of that at times, and new debt issuances, so long-term assets, paying for them over a longer period of time, reducing the burden on ratepayers in the interim. We established that. We also look at something I would refer to as more financial viability, which is, from my perspective, is kind of the reserve fund balances. It's the savings account of the water and sewer funds. Everybody on this call and everybody listening in from home, assuming we have folks out there, should have a savings account for their own what ifs that could potentially pop up. Water and sewer funds are no different. I mentioned before, water and sewer funds are incredibly capital intensive, and the scope and the landscape is changing rapidly with new regulations, new capital improvements popping up that we weren't planning for a year ago. The fluctuations in consumption. For all those reasons, it makes some sense to have a savings account sitting there, so we don't have to deviate meaningfully from the financial plan that we're establishing with our 5-year forecast. And because of those reserve funds, we were able to do that. And I think COVID was a good example of it. When things changed and even some cost changes thereafter, predominantly due to a meaningful increase in 1 year to your MWRA assessment, we were able to balance that out with some of those reserve funds and not have to have a meaningful increase, deviating too much from a financial plan on customers on the water side. So they do work, and I'm a strong advocate of them. We take all that into consideration, kind of your existing revenue stream under the rates that you currently have under the books compared to the revenue requirements or the costs that you're seeing over the next 5 years, or where we think it's going, predominantly focused on the next fiscal year, which we're in right now, fiscal year 2025, but not losing sight of the 4 years thereafter, and determine how much of a rate increase for both water and sewer is needed to be able to not only support those cost increases and the costs that you're going to have annually, but at the same time maintain an adequate balance within your reserve funds to have that financial flexibility. I'll get to kind of a bit of a punchline here. What we're looking at for fiscal year 2025 is a 2% increase on water rates, and that is just the volumetric charges. There is a fixed charge component of the water revenue stream as well. The fixed charges are not, or the base charges are not going to increase, or not proposed to increase in fiscal year 2025. We have been on an every other year cycle. So in 2024, we did have a $1 increase for your residential customers fixed charge. We're taking this year off with our proposal for a fixed charge, and we'll reevaluate that for fiscal year 2026. So it's just, the proposal is just to have the volumetric water charges increase by 2%. On the sewer side, volumetric charges, except for sewer only flat rates, no fixed charges here. We're proposing a 5% increase to sewer charges in 2025. That probably doesn't mean much to folks listening in. A 2% increase, a 5% increase, what does that mean? So I'll break that down in terms of dollars for a typical residential customer, your most common residential customer you have within the town. Currently, that customer is paying a combined water and sewer bill of about $359 per quarter. That same customer's bill with the 2% water volumetric increase and the 5% sewer increase would increase from $359 to about $373. That is a combined, between both water and sewer, a 3.86% increase to that customer's bill. It's a $13.85 increase per quarter, $4.62 per month, or if you break it down even further, it's a 15-cent per day increase for the water and sewer increases that we're talking about. And again, that amounts to a combined increase of about 3.86%. A little bit of context around that. Across the country over the last 20 to 25 years, water bills have been increasing by about 5% a year, and sewer bills have been increasing by about 6% a year over the last 25 years, every single year across the country on average. So the fact that we're maintaining financial sufficiency, keeping up with the expenses of both the water and the sewer fund, we're maintaining financial viability with having adequate reserve funds, and we're doing that with a combined 3.86% increase for your typical residential customer, which is below that national average. I think that's fantastic. And I think it's an indication of prudent financial planning. This group, not only the commissioners, but Scott and his staff, looking at this as frequently as you do, doing updates throughout the year and annual rate studies, and keeping on track, rather than doing what a lot of communities do, unfortunately, which is kicking the can down the road and waiting until something absolutely critical happens and you need a rate increase. And at that point, you're looking at a lot of times double-digit rate increases. The last year or so, I've had the pleasure of recommending 30% increases, 40% increases, and the worst one was a 50% rate increase. And not very fun, but these communities have kind of put themselves in that financial position where they're looking at such significant increases just to bring them back to even. The fact that you're ahead of the game, you are not only even, you have financial health, you have financial viability, and you're continuing to do what you need to do to reinvest in the system for the residents of Northborough, while at the same time, having a 3.86 combined water and sewer increase is hats off to you. I applaud you for doing that. And I play a very small part in helping you accomplish that. And I think it's fantastic where you are. I want to just mention one more thing, and this is mostly for the commissioners, just before I wrap up and turn it over for any questions. We did deliver a report to the town, just kind of documenting our process, the results, the recommended rate increases. And one of those is a table where it shows your reserve fund balance, your beginning balance and your ending balance. You'll notice for fiscal year 2025 for water that the ending balance does not equal the deficit that is going to run in 2025, or the difference does not equal the deficit. The reason for that is there was a fiscal year 2024 appropriation for a capital line item, a capital project of approximately $210,000, which we're funding in 2025. And so we're reducing that fund balance by that amount in addition. So there's two components going on there. It's not very easily understood in that table, so I apologize. I just wanted to point that out. So if you did notice that difference, that is where that was coming from. With that being said, Scott, I don't know if you want to add any more to that, but I'll be happy to entertain any questions or comments that you might have at this point.
No, that was a great summary and detailed explanation of how we got to where we are. Couple of things for the residents to understand is that we are retail sales. We buy water on the wholesale market from the MWRA. They charge us approximately, actually a little more than 50% of our operating budget goes toward the authority for water purchase. And then we sell it on the market. And, we run the sewer side. We discharge our sewer to Marlboro. They send us a bill that accounts for approximately 50% of our sewer budget. And we, sell that sewer service to our residents. We are, literally the middleman in a retail market. One of the challenges is we, legally can't lose money, and we are not allowed to make too much money. Otherwise, we get the eyebrows up when the auditors come in. So it's a balancing act we have every year. And like Dave said, with the group on this call and the other financial members that we work with, it's we've maintained a level of stability even through the pandemic that was really admirable when you can look at some of the neighboring communities and what they've gone through. So that's all I got, Chair.
Okay, I will ask if Bryant Furman has any questions or comments.
This time. Good presentation.
Your audio was breaking up, but you can give me a thumbs up or
Where's my hand?
There it is.
okay, all right.
Audio's better.
A little dirty.
Just for the benefit of the audience, I do have a couple of questions, Scott, if I could.
Certainly.
I guess the biggest thing that we've had to contend with over the last decade, literally decade, has been the reserve of monies due to Marlboro. There is a town meeting coming up that requires a vote that Water and Sewer wants to encourage folks about. If you could speak on that.
Certainly. Thank you. So we have a special town meeting scheduled for October 7th. There is expected to be two articles on it. One, I believe people have heard about, the fire station. There's another one on it for paying a prior year's bill. So as a municipality, if we have a bill from FY24 that we need to pay during FY25 and out of FY25 or fund balance, we need to go to town meeting to get town meeting approval to do so. When prior to settling the lawsuit with Marlboro, we were projecting what we thought the costs would be, the assessment from Marlboro would be annually. Once the settlement was reached, which occurred this past April, we were able to derive exactly what our FY24 final assessment from Marlboro will be. It was in excess of what we budgeted, but we have adequate fund balance to make that payment. So there'll be an article on the town meeting floor of approximately $540,000 or what have you. The exact number will be presented under the motion, and I'll present at the microphone what that means to our fund balance. But that is a procedural task that the town meeting voters need to engage in order for us to pay that last year's bill. Going forward, we have a better grasp of what the Marlboro assessment is going to be. So, for example, in FY25, we increased that assessment from what we thought it would be in FY24 of $990,000 to over $1.3 million. So we're closer to where we expect FY25 to be. So going forward, our goal and objective is to adequately budget in the current fiscal year's operating budget to make full Marlboro assessment. So we should be able to avoid prior fiscal year's bills at the fall town meeting.
Okay, and again, if you could just quickly comment on what we foresee as some of the big dollar drivers aside from the assessments from MWRA and the charge to Marlboro.
Yeah, so there are, as Dave indicated, we do project out our capital plan for 5 years, both in our financial planning committee meetings as well as in the detailed rate study. Part of the rate study consideration is whether it's borrowing or free cash or a little bit of both. So we do have some significant capital projects coming up. There are the standard equipment replacements, trucks, trailers, things like that. That's kind of a rolling replacement. So we maintain a good set of a good stock of equipment and materials. There are standalone projects such as the partial dam removal of Northborough Reservoir Dam and located in Shrewsbury and Boylston. We are about 75% through the environmental permitting and design process. We've received 2 grants for the design and permitting process. One was approximately $220,000 from the Department of Conservation and Recreation Dam and Seawall Program. We also received a $50,000 earmark from the state to help in funding the partial removal of the dam. We don't have a cost estimate for the removal. We expect it to be in excess of $1 million, but we will be applying again to the Dam and Seawall Grant Program to fund 80% of that removal. So we are projecting $500,000 in our capital plan for that removal for our local match. I just don't know what the number is going to be, but that has been built in. The Dam and Seawall Program has historically funded the implementation phase when they fund the design and permitting phase. So we're optimistic with that. There's also a capital improvement item in there for water main replacement and extensions. One of the focuses on that will be water quality and reliability. We have some long dead ends that taper down to 6 inches at the end, and they're low flow, low pressure. They're not looped. When you have a very long pipe that has 2 customers at the end, that water can get pretty old in the pipe. So there's certain water quality issues you have there. Looping it provides redundancy, more system flexibility, as well as better water quality and better fire suppression capabilities. So we've identified a few of those locations that would be viable for a water main extension project. Beyond that, the water division doesn't have any substantial standalone capital needs. The water storage tank, our primary water storage tank, Assabet Hill, was completely rehabilitated a couple of years ago, so that's in great working shape. The Edmonds Hill tank has been modeled to not provide any beneficial flow or pressure to the town. Sorry, Bryant. So it really is a surplus asset that will turn into a liability when it needs substantial work. So there may be a capital component of taking that offline in the future. One of the water systems capital, for lack of better terms, dreams is to have a redundancy connection to the MWRA through Marlboro. One of the benefits of settling the lawsuit with Marlboro and the change of elected officials there is we now have a good open line of communication, and I'm hopeful that they see the benefit in having a redundant connection to the authority, both through Northborough and Marlboro, that benefit both communities. They haven't been in favor of that in the past, but I guess, now that we're friends, we can all get along and maybe have a redundant connection for the authority.
Okay, great. Just to close out the kind of the accounting side of the process. You do work closely with the town accountant through this process as well. And am I correct? These enterprise funds have to get certified by the state. Am I right about that, or?
Yes, we worked through the finance department to go through the fund balance, free cash side of things, as well as the loan repayment schedules. The enterprise funds, water and sewer operate as independent enterprise funds. They're separate financial mechanisms from the town's general fund, and they go through the exact same auditing process that the general fund does. You know, for a number of years, I had a very long narrative on why the sewer fund retained earning balance was 4 times what the operating budget is, which is well in excess of pretty much any other community that I can imagine. That's no longer the case, which is good, and we do have adequate fund balance. But yeah, every single year we go through a full audit. Generally around November, we get our fund balance / free cash certified, at which point numbers like what Dave was talking about and earlier get switched over from uncertified to certified, and then they appear in the sort of in the bank account.
Okay. I just have one quick comment and one other closing thing before we open it up for public comment. I personally want to express my gratitude to the rate-paying customers. Dave mentioned 50% increases. We had to endure 50% increases for about 5 years in a row, as I mentioned about 10 years ago, in order to deal with the Marlboro situation. So I want to thank the folks in Northborough, both residents and business owners, for your understanding during that period. And as you have heard, we're essentially now leaving that situation in a good situation financially. So thank you for that. Let me see. I believe that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. Scott, before we close the hearing, could you quickly give us a synopsis, because I anticipate we're going to go right into a motion on the rates. Just quickly, what we're dealing with percent-wise and what your timeline is for implementing those?
Certainly. So to go over it one more time, the water volumetric increase proposed is 2%, 0 increase on the water base charge. The sewer volumetric charge increase is 5%. That applies to both the volumetric as well as the flat sewer. We adjusted the flat rate sewer customers, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and now they parallel better what the those customers that have metered bills coming their way. The process going forward, once the hearing is closed and the commission acts on the adjustments, the town will send out a mailer to all customers identifying outlining the changes, the new rates. That's in accordance with our regulations. We give the customers advance notice prior to the rates becoming effective. The rates will become effective under next quarter's usage. So that would be October 5th would be approximately October 5th would be the first day the new rates are applicable, and they would see that in their, was it January bill, Rob?
February 1st.
The February 1st bill. So we give them advance notice so they're aware of the adjusted rates in the event that they want to modify their usage.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Bryant, I assume you don't have anything further comment-wise or question-wise?
I do not.
Okay. At this point, I will open the meeting for public comment, and I have some informational language here, and then we'll offer a brief period of time for folks to check in. So I will forward public comment as follows. By phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Please note that part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. by Zoom, you can click raise hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. I'll ask any members of the public who wish to speak to identify yourselves by name and address. And then once we have a list of all public commentators, I will call on each of those by name and will afford 3 minutes for any comments. So I'll open it up for that period. I don't know if we have any folks. We haven't had any in the past. And I kudos to Scott and Dave, I think, for providing a lot of that information. The rate study is posted on the Town of Northborough Public Works web page.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any attendees in the waiting room, and I have not seen any indication of phone comments coming in.
Okay, well, we'll give it 30 to 45 seconds for technology to catch up with things, and then we'll move on here.
Okay.
All right, I guess we'll gone, huh? Okay, well, hearing no public comment at this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing of the Northborough Water and Sewer Commission. There'll be a roll call vote. Commissioner Furman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meter is an aye. Commissioner Pepe is absent. And anything before we move on to the motion here? Okay, this will be a motion to adopt the water and sewer rates as presented to the commission tonight at the public hearing. Again, a roll call vote. Commissioner Furman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meter is an aye. And I guess final business, Dave Fox, again, thank you for your efforts and time. We appreciate it. It's always great to see you in person. We did meet with you at our meeting a month ago in person, and it's always great, and I appreciate your efforts, sir.
My pleasure. I appreciate you all as well. It's great doing business with you, and it's nice to have clients like you. So thank you for your efforts. Thank you for being engaged and for the help that you provide me to be able to provide you assistance. So I do appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
Great.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, Dave.
Take care.
Do we have any other business that we need to conduct here, Scott Charpentier?
Yeah, really quickly, just for the public knowledge, our sewer I&I program is entering the next phase. I&I is inflow and infiltration, identification and elimination. We're in a 15-year plan. This is year 7, so we're almost halfway mark. And we're going to be doing some smoke testing. So smoke testing is when you introduce smoke to a sewer system, and when the home or business is properly plumbed, the smoke comes out the vent stack and dissipates. If there is dry traps in the home, smoke may enter the home, or if there's an illicit connection, such as a sump pump tied into the sewer, or a sump pump tied into the laundry discharge, then the smoke will be identified in the home. The smoke is harmless. It's only an indicator. So residents out there, if you're watching and you have a floor drain in your basement or in your garage, or you have a slop sink you don't use very often, just put some water in it. That'll fill the trap so the smoke doesn't go through the trap. This is in a couple specific areas. We're not doing all of town. We're doing what's referred to as sub areas 3 and 5A. Those are Lower School Street and the Juniper Hill, Juniper Brook neighborhood, back behind the golf course. And then what I refer to as Upper Northgate or Chatfield Notch, and a little bit of like the Meadow Street area of Northgate. So every resident will receive a notification in advance, about a week and a half before the work is done. The work is scheduled to start, what is it, September 9th? And there'll be notifications that go out the week before Labor Day week. Our consultants will be doing it. They'll be easily identifiable. We'll have flaggers out there. Staff, our town staff will be out there present. If there's any questions, you can always call or email the DPW office, and we'll be happy to answer any questions they have.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Do we want to set our next meeting at this point, or do you want to wait?
We can probably wait. We're going to be starting the capital improvement process in September. I'm sorry, in October. So September, we start evaluating the needs in-house. So I think probably in October or November will be the appropriate time before the capital plan goes to the Financial Planning Committee. And I'd also like to make sure we coordinate with Commissioner Pepe, so he's present. So maybe we just do it electronically at another time.
Okay, and just one other quick thing, something that we're seeing in town. You may want to quickly mention that we're also going to start making consideration of on the water and sewer piece are the accessory dwelling units.
Yes, that's one of the components we're working on for the next meeting. How we handle and treat accessory dwelling units. My office is currently looking at other communities. An accessory dwelling unit is, for example, you live in a house, you have a really nice big side yard. You decide to put up a tiny house or a really smaller home. It's on the same lot, but there is likely different residents. It's not necessarily your family. You could be renting it out, but that separate structure needs a water and sewer service. So we're currently evaluating what the most appropriate means are to provide water and sewer service to that accessory dwelling unit. And I expect at the meeting in October, late October, we'll have something prepared for the commission's consideration.
Right, great. A lot of side business tonight. That was good. All right, so I think we're all set. Nothing further to come before the commission, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission. And again, a roll call vote. Bryant Furman.
Aye.
And John Meter is an aye. I thank you for all your efforts, and everybody be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.